Rahul Guha is the MD and CEO of Thyrocare Technologies and President API Holdings, now joining us. Rahul, thanks much for taking time out. Given that you guys are expecting a mid-teen 15 to 18% top-line growth in FY25, I think the question is what is going to drive that growth and how much of it will be driven by volume and how much by price?
Good morning. And yeah, if you look at the first half of the year, we've actually exceeded that target. Of course, when we get into the festive season, what remains to be seen on how people test during the festive season. Q3 always tends to be a low quarter. But if you look at the first half, we've actually clocked, I think, about 19%, so well above where we thought we would be. And the second half of the year also, I'm quite positive. But to your question on price and volume, actually very little of it is price. Almost all of it is volume growth. When you look at the revenue per sample, you may see some price uplift, but that is more because of our pricing strategy rather than just us raising prices. In most of my investor calls, I've actually talked about our price strategy where we follow a tiered pricing approach. And that effect is what you're seeing in the price of about 4%. But almost all of it beyond that is volume.
Rahul, the intensity of price war which was there in the diagnostic space, is that over or it is still there?
I think the price war, as I've been saying for a while, was largely in the metro markets. Thyrocare has always been tier 2 and beyond focused. 80% of our business actually comes from tier 2 and beyond. To a large extent, we were unaffected by the price war. And that is actually reflected. This performance of, mid-teens growth has been there for a while for Thyrocare. That being said, definitely in the metro markets where, we have seen growth being anemic in the past, growth has now come back quite strongly, leading me to believe that the competitive intensity, which was largely based on price, has come off. And we are seeing growth come back in the metro markets also for us.
Okay. You're moving to Middle East, you're moving into Tanzania. I mean, India is so big. Why go here and there?
See, Nikunj, when you plan a long-term strategy, you only don't think about the next year or the next 2, 3 years. You have to take a much longer horizon, broadly between 5 and 10 years. And if I think about, where will the growth come from on a 10-year horizon, I believe there are many, many emerging markets where our model of affordable, good quality diagnostics can change healthcare in those markets. And as you know, getting into a new market, understanding the market, stabilizing the business model takes time. So what better time to start now? And, we have plenty of runway to actually stabilize, understand, and build our international strategy. And it'll pay dividends in the, 5-year horizon. But we're starting to seed those investments right now towards going international. And that's just from a more long-term horizon.
You've also been in an acquisition spree. So just wanted to understand what geographies are you going to be looking at and is there anything on the radar?
Actually, acquisitions, we've been on the hunt for a while. As I've elaborated in many times, we've always been weak in pockets of the north, specifically Punjab, Haryana, pockets of the south, AP, Telangana, some parts in the west, Rajasthan, Gujarat, as well as then in the northeast. And actually, all our acquisitions have been to bolster our presence. So Polo Labs was highly focused towards bolstering our presence in Punjab. Vimta Labs was very much focused on bolstering our presence on AP and Telangana. And we're continuing to look for new acquisition opportunities to strengthen our presence in the states that we're weak, specifically Rajasthan, Gujarat, the Northeast. These are where our focus areas are right now.
Okay. How is tier 2 different from tier 1? Because in the first part of your answer, you said that you are a tier 2 focused player. That's where price war and intensity is not there. But in tier 2 also, the ability for the consumer or the patient in this case is much lower than what a metro patient could pay. Preventive may not be large. The ability to pay more for the same could also be less. So while you're focusing on tier 2, I mean, there is a per capita constraint there as well.
Yeah, actually, tier two markets compared to tier one and metro, there are two main challenges. One is, as you rightly put it, the ability to pay. And that actually fits very well with Thyrocare's model. We have always been an affordable player. If you look at us versus any of the other branded players, we're typically 20 to 30% lower in terms of affordability. And that's our philosophy, to make diagnostic testing affordable. The second part in metro tier, beyond tier two and beyond, is largely around the access of good quality testing. Right? When you go into tier two, you see a lot of mom and pop, single owner pathology labs. As you probably know, only 2% of NABL labs in India are NABL accredited. For Thyrocare, it's close to 95%. So bringing that good quality and affordability into the tier two markets actually works very well for us and is one of the key pillars of our strategy.
Thinking through it, that there's so much of disruption happening in the world, right? There is food delivery service, now there is quick service, hospitals have started delivering medicines now. What's the disruption which will happen in the diagnostic space? I mean, could there be something like a quick diagnostics on the site? I mean, is there anything which could happen in the next 2-3 years which we should think and look forward to?
I think one of the big disruptions already happening is the power of the consumer. And you see that, or the patient. You see that in our Janch packages. We have not seen people testing for fever in this level of volumes than we have ever seen in the past, keeping aside COVID. So clearly, people are also taking the power of healthcare into their own hands, understanding what they're suffering from, and being more proactive, both on the preventive side, but even on sick care. I mean, in the last quarter, we saw people who had fever using our Janch monsoon fever quite substantially. And the thesis, when we asked them, why are you doing these, which fits with our strategy, was really they said, look, I have a fever, but I want to understand whether this is something serious. Is it dengue, malaria, typhoid, or is this a normal viral which I then just take rest and recover from? And we saw a lot of that in the power of the consumer or the patient. So I definitely think the main disruption is also going to come from more patient-centric, what do you call, tests. One is, of course, on the preventive side, people are doing annual health checkups on quite a regular basis, but also these sick care, where it helps you understand what you're suffering from and target the therapy much better. And then we are seeing a lot of the genomic kind of testing as well, where people want to understand their body, what suits them, what doesn't suit them. So, for example, our food intolerance test, which allows you to test for 250 foods and whether you're intolerant to them, has been doubling year on year. And it's clear that the patient wants to understand his body better, wants to be more fit and better manage their healthcare. And I think that's the big disruption. If you go back 5 to 10 years, almost all the diagnostic tests were doctor prescribed and then patient administered. Today, actually, the patient is reaching out directly and wanting to understand their health much better. And companies that focus on that are able to talk directly to the patient is where I think the disruption will come from.
Okay. All right. Rahul, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. Always good to get your perspective.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.